you doing? Why? Hi. Yeah. What's up, partner? Mm-hmm. I haven't even touched you yet. You're already purring. I know. Hi, buddy. Hi. It's the neighbor's cat. This is Max. He loves me. He loves me. He's my buddy. Ever since I bought this house, he just came over all the time as I was building it and just would sit here with me. And he didn't give a shit about construction noises or nothing. I was ripping planks on the table saw, and he was laying next to me on a chair the whole time. He was getting covered in sawdust. He didn't care. He's a good boy. He's a good boy, and he's a cat. Usually good boys are dogs, but you know, he's good. Oh, you know, Jim, today I am feeling extra thankful. I'm thankful for Max. My partner. How you doing? Oh yeah. Such a good cat. Oh, you're a good cat. You just pee on stuff sometimes. Ooh, I got a package from Optics Planet. Gun parts. That's the best. Flip this around real quick. Man, the smoke is insane right now. You can't even see the mountains in front of my house. I mean, they're like right there. I promise. They're right there. A lot of fires going on right now. I mean, it's fire season. Cars are covered in ash. My seats are covered in ash. I want to sit down out here. I was going to sit down on the chair, but it's covered in ash. Everything's covered in ash right now. It kind of sucks. I was at the machine shop today. It's a little glary. I don't like to talk my glasses on too much. It's so impersonal to stare through sunglasses at somebody, you know. But it's bright. I was at the machine shop today. Checking out my pulleys, the light enough crank pulley. Also getting, all right. Also getting the other ones changed a smidge. Little post release revision, if you will. And I got Amazon, and I got Postal Service, and Optics Planet, and something else. Boy, it's like freaking Christmas in August. And so I was getting the dry sump pulleys modified a smidge so that they, oh, that's what showed up. Oh, good. This will make the streaming better. Yeah, that's gonna be good. And that, well, I don't care about that so much. And a check. I have a check. There's a check from the Department of the Treasury with my name on it. It's probably $13 or something in my luck, right? I had a tax return check one year. It was like 13 cents or $13. It was something stupid. I never cashed it. And maybe this is that again. Maybe they reissued it. I don't know. They keep sending to me like every year, and I never cash it. I'm like, it's $13. Fuck you. What's up, buddy? God, he is just really lovely right now. So I got a turbo. Well, I kind of got a turbo. I'm excited to show you guys that. I didn't even know it was going to be here, but it's here now. And I just wanted to say, today I'm feeling very thankful. I went to the machine shop, checking out my pulleys, talking to Ryan, the machinist there at 7 Seaters LLC, about our histories and about the people that have helped us get to where we are. And, you know, he mentioned that when he was in school, at one of his trade schools, that they had a sign on the wall. And he doesn't remember exactly what it said, but it was basically to the gist of that no matter how successful you get, we didn't do it alone. And yes, there are those of us that have worked our asses off and didn't have things handed to us, you know, and that kind of stuff. But even for those of us that have worked really, really hard to pull ourselves out of poverty or out of a situation that we were born into or something, there was still somebody along the way who invested in you, whether it was just some time, whether it was just some advice, whether it was actual money, right? A lesson, education, whatever. There's there's always somebody who has invested in you in some way, and um, and it's important not to forget that, and don't let your own ego convince yourself that you did it all yourself. Yes, obviously you're the key factor, right? Your own work ethic, your determination, your desire to be successful or to achieve a goal, your creativity, whatever it may be, is 1,000% and a very important and critical part of the whole process, be it personal growth, business success, or whatever. But without the help of those other people, you probably wouldn't have got there. Like my wife. My wife has been a huge part of my personal growth and my success. Her unwavering faith in me, and the support that she gives me, be it when I'm having an emotional time, or she's folding my socks. You know what I mean? Like everything that she does for me has helped me. Whether it's as simple as just allowing me more time to work on the projects I need to work on, or if it's being a rock or loaning me some cash when things were tight, whatever. Like my instructors in college, Kurt was, he was, he was one of my teachers for my, he did like the SolidWorks and all that stuff. He was very, um, there's so many words that come to mind to describe Kurt. I can't even pick one. He he was committed, and it was obvious that he was dedicated and committed and cared about me, as a student and as a person. Um, it it's shit. Kurt was great. Kurt was wonderful. I got a chat coming in. Let me see here. Let's see. We got a cat. It looks like Max. Oh, he's Manx, huh? Interesting. Insane amount of smoke. Yeah, it's nuts here. I have a lot to your knowledge and experience in doing the swap myself. I wish I could read who that is. Well, I'm glad I could help, man. And that's one of the reasons that I was making this is because I, it's one thing about living on the final of the airport. It's cool. You see some cool fucking planes, but sometimes it's loud. And this airport's supposed to be a private airport, but it's gotten, I mean, public airport, but not like commercial, but it's become more and more commercialized as this area grows. So it won't be long before I gotta have earplugs to be outside. Yeah, so Kurt was great. Kurt was wonderful. He's absolutely dedicated and passionate about his job, but also, like he saw things in me, and other students who have since then been very successful. Um, Paul Yaw is somebody who influenced me heavily about 10 or so years ago, more than 10 years ago, even, might have been 2009. 9 or 10, somewhere in that range is where I learned of Paul. And he's biting my arm because I won't pet him. Is where I learned about Paul. And who, Paul Yaw and I, or Kurt? Kurt was my teacher in college, one of them. Paul Yaw and I mean, initially it was just through the internet, right? Like, um, a customer, a Subaru customer named Eric Olson, he was working on gear sets, with Albans in New Zealand, Albans gears, and with T1 race development when they were bigger in the Honda stuff. And so he was bringing these
they were leading like design, R&D and stuff of these Albans gear sets for Hondas. Hondas before this time had very crappy available gear sets for them. So they I think like Liberty or somebody like that, Liberty or somebody else like that would make gear sets for these Hondas, and they just weren't handling the abuse and stuff. What? What do you want? What? What? Come on. Anyway, so Eric was working with T1 Race Development to bring these gear sets to Hondas, and then T1 Race Development was one of the people that were directly associated with Injector Dynamics, and T1 Race Development knew of me through Eric and through Subaru stuff, and so we started carrying Albin's gears for Subarus as well. But then they contacted me about fuel injector setup and adapter setup for Subarus, and so they contact. He's biting my arm again. They asked me to help them design the top feed injector conversion from side feeds to top feeds. So they sent me some stuff, and I fit it to some TGVs, and I put stuff on the mill, and I cut a few things and shaped some stuff and made it work, and then sent it back and said, "This is the fitment that you need for these to work." So the first side to top feed fuel injector conversion was me and T1 Race Development. And then T1 Race Development had, I think it was Low Cash Racing at the time, do the machine work on their CNCs and stuff to make these conversion kits. So here's the first side feed to top feed injector conversion kit, and it's being, ow, you little fucker, it's being developed by or produced by 3 or 4 companies: T1 Race Development, Low Cash Racing, me at Maxwell Power, and Injector Dynamics. So to bring you the first side feed to top feed conversion. So that's how I got to know the guys at T1 and know of Injector Dynamics. And of course, I was curious about injectors because I was ignorant as fuck about them. Back then, I thought they were just basically an orifice you open and closed, and you got fuel. The ideas of low pulse behavior, low pulse adder, the how much fuel pressure affects latency, and all that stuff was wasn't lost to me, but I didn't know much about a lot of that stuff. So, and it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough, because I knew all about hydraulic systems and fluid systems and everything else from working on reactors. I just didn't know how they affected fuel injectors. And so Paul Yaw had a bunch of videos online about that stuff. So I watched some of those, and they were really handy. And so one year I went to PRI. I think it was 10. I think it was 2010. I went to PRI in Orlando to meet the Albans crew and to meet Paul and all those people from Jet Dynamics as well. And Paul gave me a book. So that was the first time I met Paul in person. Was there at PRI. Like I said, I think it was 2010. I was in Florida at the time before they went back to Indianapolis. And he gave me a book. It was Haywood's Internal Combustion Engine Fundamentals book. And that book has been awesome. And I've recommended it to thousands of people. And now there's a second edition. It's a more modernized one. It wasn't one done in the 60s or 70s, whenever the first one was done. It was done a long time ago. But regardless, the information in that book is very applicable and paramount in understanding how an internal combustion engine actually works. And so when I tell people that I understand how it works on a molecular level, that's largely because of that book combined with my other education in nuclear power and chemistry and all that stuff too. So, and physics and all that. Meow, 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 meow. What's up, buddy? Anyways, that's where I met Paul. And, it wasn't like Paul took me under his wing and told me how to tune or taught me about how to be a man or fucking anything like that, right? He just was like, "What's up, dude? It's good to meet you. I got you this book," and and he signed it, right? And I got you this book, and I figured it would help, and he was fucking right, And so there was that as far as in person is concerned. And then his videos where he teaches people about how fuel injectors work and fuel systems and all that stuff. And those things all really were the ones that knocked me off the top of Mount Stupid, and made me realize that there was so much more to tuning and engines and stuff than I'd ever imagined. And so, because of Paul, I really um, acknowledged my ignorance and made it. It became an obsession. It's an actual obsession with knowledge, and learning about all sorts of things. I mean, after that, I went to college again. And, got 3 whole associate's degrees. I know they're just associates, but hey, they are what they are. What happened? All right, I'm over this check here from the. Which is it? 42. I guess I overpaid my taxes by $42. I had to pay this year. I had to pay like a bunch of grands. Many grands. The decimal place moved over in a direction to the right many times past this $42 in this check. But woohoo, $42. That's a couple bottles of wine for the wife or something. All right. So I guess what I'm saying is don't forget those that helped you, because there are people that helped you along the way. And don't let your own ego convince you that it was all you. And because that's a quick way to burn bridges, and I'm a fucking pro at burning bridges. I'll tell you, firsthand. I am a dummy. I'm gonna use the word passionate, because I care a lot, and often too much, that it makes me do things and sometimes lash out or respond in a way that's not proportional to the offense or whatever it is that they got me spun up. So I know about that, and I've been trying really hard to work on that. I have some things that I've done in the past that have made me go, wow, man, like, I didn't like that I did that. And so I have actively sought to fix some of those things, about myself, and also to find those people and apologize to them. Like my old roommate, Aaron Wade. This is gonna sound silly. My old roommate, the greatest roommate I've had yet, ever, honestly, other than my girlfriend, who became my wife. Great roommate. We were clean. We were responsible. Paid our bills on time. We hang out together. We party together. Whatever. And stuff. And one day, we were out drinking at the bar, goofing off, and I just punched him square in the chest, out of nowhere. It was supposed to be playful, but I had one too many, and it was hard. I felt this chest cave around my fist. I can still feel it to this day. Of course, it's riddled with guilt, and he just like buckled around my fist, and the look in his eyes and everything, I felt fucking terrible, and I still do. And that was 30 years ago, I think. At least 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. And yeah, I don't know if I've ever hit anyone like that ever again, and in a playful way. I pretty much immediately tried to curb punching my friends. And I did in high school. We all goofed off and that kind of stuff. But sometimes you just let things get away, and man, I hit them hard. And our relationship was never the same after that. That's how hard I hit him. I hit him hard enough that he like lost trust in me. Thing. I hit him hard, and it was stupid. I don't even know why. I didn't, this day, even then I don't know why I did. I was just kind of just like fucking around. We're in a circle, drinking our beers. I was like, boom, and fucking nailed him. Yeah. So things like that I just, I hate, the things that I've done. So I try and, go back and And finally, just going to apologize to them if I can. You know, I've had people I've contacted say, hey man, I'm really sorry I did those things to you 30 years ago, whatever. And it's kind of fucked up maybe that they still weigh on me, but maybe not. I don't know. I think it's those things that you have guilt over that help shape and um, influence your future actions and that kind of stuff. And if you don't have any guilt for things that you've done, then you've either never done anything wrong, which is really hard to believe, or you're a fucking sociopath. I don't know. Something. Something, man. I don't know. I don't even know. Going down, everyone should reflect and try to improve themselves. I think so. I really do. And um, you have a good heart, dude. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe that's why all these damn cats and kids freaking flock to me. Man, let me tell you, babies. I walk by babies. Doesn't matter where I'm at. They're like this when I go by. People's kids, they see me and they just like latch on. It is weird. And I don't even like kids. But they love me. I like babies though. Babies are cute. I like babies. I like babies when they're in the phase where when you sit them down and you come back later, they're still there. That's the best phase of a baby. It's when you sit them down and they move on their own that problems begin. Let me tell you. When you just throw a towel around them like a cat trap, you know, and just like let them sit there in that little circle. That's the best baby phase for sure. But I don't know. Maybe I gotta get aura. I don't know. That's actually a topic that I think humans don't talk about enough. And I don't mean auras in particular. I mean what we can see versus what's really there. And that's really, really interesting. To not to change subject too bad here, but we're going for this ride. Hope you're ready, okay? Just think about it. What we can see is just a narrow spectrum or a narrow band in the electromagnetic spectrum. There's so much more out there. I mean, like right now, I'm standing in my house, and there are UV rays coming in from the sun through the clouds. There's particles in the air that are decomposing around us. There's little neutrons and betas and alphas and stuff flying off of random radon, you know, low levels of radon, that kind of stuff. Or some areas high levels of radon, but right, it's there. There's the waves from this phone, from the Wi-Fi on this phone, are permeating my body right now and going to the antenna behind me above the washing machine that you can't see. Oh, you can't see above the paper towels, right? That's my mesh network there. Right? Those waves are, I can't see those waves. I can't feel those waves. Right? I mean, I can't feel them. I can't smell them. I can't taste them. Right? Like, but they're there. And there's energy in them. You know, you can cook somebody with a microwave and you can't see it. And there's energy in that wave. There's more energy in that wave than there is on the surface of my skin. So there's this, I don't know if I say dichotomy, but there's a spot where physical matter and energy are not equivalent. I guess the best way I can say it. I mean, really, if it's solid matter, it's actually molecules that have slowed down enough that they can be close together enough to become solid. So really, solid matter is a low energy state. And what dictates the level of energy that is required to create a living being? Is there some magical sliding, scale of energy, or are there beings that are located in energy levels well above what we're located in, right? Like what? There's just all kinds of stuff, and if there was a higher energy being or life form of some sort, and it was located outside of the physical or the visual spectrum of us humans, would we see it? No. Could we feel it? I don't know. It depends how much energy's in it, right? I mean, I don't feel this Wi-Fi band go through my body. And so if there was something on that scale of energy, could it pass through me? Maybe. And if it was high enough to be like a microwave, a high energy microwave, could it bake me to death? Maybe. Could I spontaneously combust I guess, right? I mean, we don't freaking know. And what's even crazier is that the things that we see are really only just electrical signals in our brain. We can hijack those signals, and people have been experimenting on humans for years about this kind of stuff, to hijack those signals and feed them to the brain to give you the perception of something that may not even be there. So it's really, really interesting to think about how what I see is there is only a fraction of the energy spectrum or whatever that's actually there. It's really trippy. I know it's crazy, but so the thought that somebody could have an aura or something like that is entirely plausible. That there's some level of energy in your body, a field generated by your body, be it magnetic or whatever, because we have all kinds of electricity going through us. And my family's really weird. Like, my mom can't wear a watch because they run fast when she wears them. And, like, real fast. Like, hours in a day kind of fast. And I have a hard time with electronics. All my friends say that I have the worst electronics luck of anyone they know. Things just don't work right around me. Why is that? I just have bad luck? Like, that all these electrical devices around me malfunction all the time? Or do I have some sort of field that I give off? Who fucking knows? I don't know. But to say that it's impossible, I mean, our senses are limited, like someone said in chat. They're limited. Like, how much do we really know, or can we perceive of what's out there? And it ain't much, really. It really isn't much. But a lot of us get trapped in our own world, where our own world is strictly those senses. And our own world is primarily those senses and primarily our feelings and that kind of stuff. So I would definitely not want to be able to see radio waves. No, it'd be freaking, exactly, yeah. And it'd also be eye-opening too. You'd be like, motherfucker, like, I am surrounded by this shit. This shit is going through. And I mean, if you could see the effect they had on just the molecules in your body, you'd be like, huh. Because radio waves do affect you. I mean, yeah, they're low level, but they're adding energy. They interact with electrons and protons and neutrons in your body. It's yeah, I'd be a little weirded out by it too, I think, or the movement of energy in, like, heat, right? When you feel the heat coming off of your oven, right? That's electromagnetic radiation, and you can feel it, but you can't see it unless there's so much of it that it starts to bend light waves, like mirage and stuff, right? That kind of stuff. How tasty are the mushrooms? Mushrooms are never tasty. Oh wait, I mean, not magic mushrooms. They're never tasty. Regular mushrooms are good. The magic mushrooms taste terrible. I mean, I've heard. So, anyways, should we change subjects now? Back to that box. So, some of you, I'm sure many of you, if you're a Subaru person, you have seen Pavel engines. I assume it's pronounced Pavel. And they have that VF turbo wheel hybrid conversion thing that's supposed to make a VF into some version of a G25 550. So I said, I'm gonna buy one. One of the guys in my Discord bought one and posted some pictures of it and stuff, and gave me some information about it, as to how he felt about it, which I enjoyed, and it was enough that made me say, you know what, I'm gonna fucking get one. I'm gonna get one and check it out. So I bought the RHF 55 G25 550 clone turbo setup. Okay. Now, about this turbo, right? What they're giving you is a turbine that is, let me back up. So all the wheels fit in the housings of the VF. So the contour of the wheel, the outside edge, I guess I can point to it here in a second. The contour of the wheel is going to match the contour of the factory VF housings. So in that regard, you you won't have an actual G25 550 or anything like that. You just can't, because that the contour of the wheels has to match the turbine housings and the compressor housing. So here it is. Here it is. I opened the box. I should have done an unboxing video live, like actually showed you. I just cut the tape, pulled this one out. This looks like the journal bearings and the thrust bearing and some hardware and stuff in there. We'll open that in a second. And in here, I assume, is the shaft. If it's not, then I got the shaft. And if it's not the shaft, I got the shaft. Okay. So, I need to somehow figure out how to open this one-handed. The knife is sharp, but it ain't that sharp. I gotta push down. It doesn't work if you just push down on it. I guess you have to slide it across things, which you can't do because no grip. So I'm gonna set the phone down. Let's see. Maybe I can lean it. Let's see. Change the camera. Here we go. Flip it towards me. This box is not heavy enough because now it's light to hold it. Here we go. All right. Here she is. Okay, so I'm gonna open the sucker. The knife actually is pretty sharp. Here we go. Okay, first item. And the first item is the whole item, as I see now, as I get deeper in here. It is the shaft. Okay, so what am I seeing here? What am I seeing? All right, so what I'm seeing is what we're told is a G25 turbine wheel that's been either welded on or modified to fit an RHF 55 shaft. I don't know the answer to that. What I am seeing, though, is that these tip profiles don't exactly match the G25. And you can see this machine on here has trimmed them down some. So there's stuff missing from the wheel, okay, here on the tips. Now, that's part of that contour I was talking about, right? Like, you got to have some contour matching for the VF. So it appears to me that they trimmed this part down to match the contour. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't see a turbine manufacturer leaving the end of the turbine wheel in a T, right? They're not going to leave that in the T shape, and it's not focusing very good, but that's just the shit we got to deal with, okay? So I don't see that being the end of the wheel normally, and I wish I had a G25 550 to show you. I don't. I do, however, have a G35. Oh, but it's not here. It's at the shop. Shitballs. Yeah, so I had a G35. I can show you that. Nick has a G25 660, I believe, and his wheel would be the same as this. So it appears to me that this has been cut from the 25 wheel to make it fit in the VF housing. I could be wrong, but that is definitely a machined surface there. And that profile does not look like a 25 profile by itself. So immediately what I'm saying, it looks like it's a 25 wheel that's been modified to fit in an RHF housing. Now, does that break my heart? No, it doesn't. I mean, it's always a bummer when you lose some inducer on a turbine, because inducer diameter provides torque as the air is coming, I shouldn't say air, because exhaust isn't air, right? It's air and vapors, and vapors are different than air, right? So as the vapors and the air, or as the exhaust is leaving the engine, it pushes, right, on these blades. And the first part it hits is the outer tip. And so the highest velocity exhaust gas with the most energy, because it's fresh from the engine, bink, hits the widest point and produces torque. And so if I shrink this down, then I can potentially lose torque. Now, that being said, when they trim this down, they also, however, reduce the weight, right, which changes the inertia of the wheel, reduces the inertia. And they also, what was I going to say? So they changed the weight. Yes, I said that. Oh, which reduces inertia. So now I have less overall weight. And then I have a wheel that's easier to spin up because it has less total inertia. So when you hear people talk about clipping turbines, this isn't the exact thing they're doing, but when someone clips a wheel, they are reducing the inertia of the wheel to do it, and they're usually doing it to increase flow. Now this isn't that. This isn't what they're doing here. Now, over the RHF, this one is really cool because what do we got? 9 blades there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 blades. All right. So we got 9 blades on here, and the newer VFs are actually pretty good and have think they're 11 though. Somebody have to correct me on that. I can't recall how many blades are on the VF. So that's cool. Also, this is different. If you look at his website or the eBay page where he sells this from, this contour is different, and this contour gives you an idea of how when air enters and then leaves, how it pushes. Ah, my phone vibrated. My friend's Marco Polo with me right now, and yeah. So this contour is also different than the RHF. And then based on the angle of this, I think the RHF is a steeper angle, if I recall correctly, which means a steeper angle means, how it says without saying it too much of a blanket statement. All else things being equal, if this angle was steeper, the back pressure would be higher, because it'd take more force to push past that steeper angle and turn the wheel. I think that's the best way I can say it, and still be somewhat correct about it. Shaft is a turbo shaft, pretty interesting. A thrust surface. The journals are usually in here, but I don't know how this one's set up. This looks like it might be spacers or something. Oh my god, I was like, what is that feeling? It's another cat. It's Dorothy now. Hi, kitty. I think she smells Max on me. She's like, you fucking traitor. All right, now the compressor. The compressor, you look at it, looks a lot like the GTX compressor or the G series compressor. A few videos ago, I corrected myself because I had previously said that I thought the GTX and the G series were the same compressors. They only changed the turbine. That was wrong. I was wrong. They changed the compressors as well with the G series turbo. So this is supposedly a clone of the 550. Now, a clone would be incorrect. I would say it's more of a it's influenced by the 550. One, the contour is different, but the process by which this is made, and they call it the point milled or point end milled compressor, is the same. But it has the different profile that fit the compressor housing. Obviously, the inducer and exducer diameters are different because it's made to fit an existing housing and not the G25 housings. I also think the fin count is different. I thought the GTXs were symmetrical with an even fin count, and this has an odd fin count. I'll have to look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are also 9 blades. And I thought the GTX was 10 blades or 12 blades. So I have to look into that on that. But anyways, why did I get this? Why did I get this thing? I didn't pay $300 so I could sit here and hold it in my hand and be like, oh cool, look it. Right? I got this because I'm doing two things. I'm going to test this turbo. But I'm not going to test it in the normal VF housings. I'm going to use a VF compressor housing. But for the turbine housing, I'm getting a P20 turbine housing. Now, if you don't know what that is, you haven't been in the Subaru game very long. Let's put it that way. Because a long time ago, P18 and P20 housings were a huge deal. A bunch of Japanese turbos came with P20 housing. I think the VF34, the VF22, I think were the two that come to mind immediately. And the P20 housing is a larger turbine housing. It's an equivalent of, I believe, an 8-centimeter housing. And you've all heard the expression 7 centimeters squared, 8 centimeters squared, 10 centimeters squared, right? That has to do with the AR of that housing. And the larger housings flow more gas at the same pressure. And they have a different efficiency range based on gas flow. And so I saw this and I said, that's really sweet, but the VF housing is pretty restrictive. So I ordered a P20 housing. So I'm going to run this turbo with a P20 housing, something that I haven't seen done yet. And then, depending on the results of that test, I'm going to take this turbo and I'm going to put it in a compound configuration. I'm going to put it in my RS. I took the 6-cylinder out, well, not yet. The 6-cylinder is coming out, and I'm putting a 4-cylinder back in it. A lot of people are upset with me about that. I'm a little upset with me about it too. But I have another RS. I have, well, it's not technically RS, it's an L, but it's another GC. I got the GC from Mike from Pacific Import Auto. It was his. It made like 637 wheel horsepower on a Mustang dyno like fucking 10 years ago. I bought that from him as just a chassis. Actually, we exchanged. I think I gave him a blower for it in exchange. So that chassis is already set up for drive-by-wire. And it has a newer wire harness from a '05 STI in it. So that one will work better when I go to throw in a drive-by-wire 6-cylinder. That chassis also already has a cage in it. And since my 6-cylinder will eventually be built and go really fast, it's going to go in there. Now, Robert and I were working something out for that chassis and that car a long time ago, and I haven't heard anything in a while. So I don't think he's going to mind if I keep building it and make something cool out of it. He's supposed to buy it from me, make something cool out of it until he's ready to finish the deal. So in the meantime, I'm doing something cool with it, and I'm putting a fucking 6-cylinder in it. But my white one is going to get this in a compound setup with my G35 G35 900. I think because the G35 900 is a relatively slow spooling turbo, at least by the reports that I've seen from people on the internet complaining about them, I think those people often had too large of a turbine housing, but you know, that's neither here nor there. I think having the G35 turbine, or G35 900 turbocharger as the big one, and then a G25 550-ish turbocharger, the small one, would be kind of neat. I think that'd be cool. Now, granted, it's not ball bearing. This guy's not ball bearing. It's just the standard, you know, thrust and journal bearings, that kind of stuff. But I still think it's gonna be cool. So I'm gonna test it on the 15 STI, the red one. Once I get the factory engine put back in it, then the red STI will get this turbo with a P20 housing, STI top mount, just standard stuff, right? Because I want to see what this will do with what I would think is a better match of a turbine housing in the car. I mean, when you add this much airflow that this is supposedly capable of making, you often need to increase turbine flow. And if you can't, then you reach choke points in areas that you don't want to have choke points, right? And so I think that this turbo, if it flows what they say it flows, mixed with the P20 housing is going to be a sweet combination. And I hope I'm right. I could be wrong. I have no idea. There's a lot of turbos out there on the market that are a bunch of huff and fluff, and this could be one of them. Or it could kick ass. I don't know. So, hope it kicks ass. I mean, I'm spending like a lot of money to do this. The housing is like almost $300. This guy was just over $300. So I got that plus a VF, and that's going to go into a car just to test it, right? And just to test it in a day and age when I tell everyone, go fucking rotate it because stock location sucks. I'm testing a stock location turbo. That's funny, right? So, but hey, if it works, if it does what a Dom 15 does or something like that, I think this will be a very successful turbo. That housing combined with this stuff, and if it has something like Dom 15, you know, output for a fraction of the cost, I think that's a win. And because of that, I want to try it. Now, granted, I'm not making this. I like how you avoid saying how much money you're spending. Your wife wants. You know what? She doesn't at all, actually. So for I'm gonna swap them out for the STI, a standard VF 48 housing. When I put it into the compound setup, I'm going to 52 housing. But the 52 housing on there because the different discharge angle and the bolt-on flange is going to make it easier for me to attach it to the air-water intercooler. And I'm going to have air-water intercooler between the two turbos because if you do compound charging, you should fucking have an intercooler between them. A lot of people do it, and they don't put intercoolers between them, which is dumb. That's why they're called intercoolers in the first fucking place. Yeah, so anyways, not to get on a soapbox about that, but yeah, I'm going to put intercoolers between the two turbos. My wife does not watch my stream. She hates my stream, which is hilarious, right? My wife fully supports me in everything I do, but she does not like watching my streams. So she never does. She says sometimes that I tell too much. She thinks I overshare. So she'll never know how much I praise her for being so awesome. But yeah, she doesn't watch them. And besides that, her and I, we don't. I don't want to say we don't discuss money because we discuss money a little bit. We have our own accounts, but we don't police our spending. Like I don't police her spending, and she doesn't police my spending, like at all. We have a basic obligation to the household, and yeah, as long as we meet our basic obligation to the household and to each other, then we don't really worry about it. And try and save some money for. Oops, says chat's hidden. That was not intended. Let's see. How much you? Okay. Nope. So that's pressure reviews. You're gonna get 400 horsepower on a stock station turbo? Well, I doubt that. Not 400 wheel, but 400 crank is easy. Compound turbo, yes, yeah. The G25 550 Cologne and a G35 900 as the big turbo, and that's going to go. Well, it's supposed to go on to a 2.35 D-stroker with closed deck and large head studs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it may go on to a 2.5 initially just because of the way some things are working out. So, yeah, so that's what I got there. I also got some sights. Did Pavel make a ball bearing shaft to fit a CH 22? As far as I know, no. As far as I know, they don't. We'll have to ask them. Ball bearings add a certain level of complexity and difficulty when you're trying to adapt one thing to another. Like assembly techniques change dramatically with ball bearings. Hope you like my thumb. So techniques change of ball bearings and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of there's extra difficulties in that, All right, so what's in this box? Oh, you know what? Since you're live, what do you think about smoothing turbine housings inches for less turbulence? My question to you is, what do you think is causing the turbulence? That's where I would start with that. Because a lot of people think what induced turbulence actually doesn't. And so my question is just, what specific part are you thinking causes turbulence, and what do you think you're doing to fix that? And if we find that, yes, this part actually is causing turbulence, then I'm fine with eliminating turbulence, but there's flow out of an engine isn't just a matter, or even through a port, it isn't just a matter of friction or turbulence necessarily. Man, I'm just dropping everything. That was like a grand thing. Turbine housing inlet is smaller than the uppipe diameter. So you have an aftermarket uppipe, I assume? It must be an aftermarket uppipe because it's not really on the factory, right? So also, is that technically turbulence, or are you talking about a narrowing of the pathway? So if I have a hard edge and air hits that hard edge, it doesn't necessarily cause turbulence. It causes an area of high pressure at the step, and this high pressure spot goes into the pathway of the tube. So it can hit here, there's a high pressure spot right here, and that can actually make the flow through the tube as if the tube was smaller. So as far as calling it turbulence is concerned, it's not the word I would use, but it does create a high pressure region. Like if this was my pipe side profile. This is a terrible example. I'm not going to use that. I'm abandoning that right now. Here we go. So here's a hose, and I got a bigger hose on it, and so the bigger hose is flowing in the smaller hose. If the big hose, this is a big if too, right? The big hose has to have an amount of airflow, laminar airflow, that's really close to the wall, that's flowing at a rate that's enough to impact this and cause a a high pressure region right here. Now, and that's the key too, because if this had a different shaped pipe that went into it at an angle like this and had a big swoop, right, and it came on this inside, then if the bend was tight enough anyways, the air on this inside edge might never even hit this. It might have so much speed and inertia that it would break off the wall anyways and flow in this pipe. No harm, no foul. But the other side being big, when the air is leaning against that outer edge, and obviously the air doesn't lean, right? But the outer edge of that pipe is pushing back at the air to hold it, right, keep it going around that corner. If that's where the higher pressure region is, you're going to have less stagnant airflow on that outer bend because all the pressure is trying to push it away. Then yeah, that's going to hit an area and it can cause a high pressure region, right? So the question is does it need it, right? Like, is there just like a spot that goes narrow, big, narrow again, you know, or whatever, and where is it in there? Where's the gasket sit and all of that? So if there is an impact that causes a high pressure region that does simulate a smaller pipe, the second question is does that hurt you? Because it doesn't necessarily hurt you, because that turbine is pretty small all the way down here. And as soon as it enters, it starts narrowing immediately anyways. So does that actually do anything negative? And it might not. Like, it might not have any effect at all. I am very much against porting things at random without concrete evidence, because when you increase volume by porting, you increase lag. And I don't like to increase lag just for the sake of saying, oh, it's smoother now, you know? So I don't gasket match, because gasket match is bullshit in a lot of cases. I've had so many cars show up with bigs. Oh, my header's ported. It's the Grimspeed one or whatever. Or I did it. I gasket matched it. It's got, you know, a ported turbo. It's got all this stuff, and the motherfucker makes 20 wheel less than the guy that had none of that shit done. I think maybe once I've seen someone make more power with that stuff done to the car. Like, I've never seen it work. And I think it's because people forget that the airflow in your exhaust is not a continual stream. It is a wave. There is a pulsing action in there. You have a sonic wave traveling at the speed of sound through the exhaust, as well as the mass flowing through your exhaust. And those waves have effect in the flow. And steps and bends affect those waves, and sometimes they affect them in a positive way. If you look at the factory header, it goes from a small, the head comes out small, the header's big. Then it comes around the corner and goes to the first cross pipe. And the header's small and the cross pipe's big. And it goes along the cross pipe into the other side of the header. And the cross pipe's small and the header's big. Every step, it steps up every time. Okay? Now, it would be very ignorant to think that Subaru couldn't cast that header and that cross pipe within 10 thou of each other and produce an almost continuous smooth pipe. Extremely ignorant. Modern technology for casting and machining is way sufficient to have that be a continuous path. So why'd they do it? Well, those steps break up waves that are traveling that way, the opposite direction, right? Reversion waves that would create higher back pressure in the exhaust, or cause cylinder 2 or 4, cylinder 4 to have higher back pressure because cylinder 2 fired right before it. It helps break those waves up and help minimize the rise in back pressure that cylinder 4 would have. You smooth that whole thing out, cylinder 4 suffers more. So you have to remember that exhaust flow is not just air down a tube, right? There's pulses to it, there's mass, and there's two aspects. There's the wave traveling at the speed of sound, and then there's the gas flow traveling at so many meters per second. And so those things have to be taken into account when you go and start altering the geometry, porting this or that, or doing whatever. So what's my answer? My answer is I probably wouldn't do it. That's my answer. My answer
is that I would probably only I'd probably go different size up pipe, honestly. Okay, what was the question? Still something a question. Then have discussion coworker. Have you ever done a video difference in horsepower and torque? I think I have. I know I've talked about it in videos. Engines produce torque. As Nick said, he said what instantaneous measure of power. I would argue that it's not. I would say it's an instantaneous measurement of force. If it was power, then it would have power in the name, right? But it's not. It's a force, and it's all about doing work. Okay, so if I take what does work, right? If I take this turn blade and I pick it up, okay, I've done work, and that work is just the weight of this times the distance traveled. Right? Oh, good. So I've done work. Now, if I do this really slow, or I do this really fast, one of them is more difficult. One of them requires more instantaneous force than the other. But what's weird is I did the same amount of work. But what changed? What changed was the time it took me to do the work, right? So if I pick it up slowly, yeah, that's no problem at all, right? If I go faster, right, it takes more force and more force and a faster time to do it, or to do it in a shorter time. Sorry, I started stumbling on my words there. So engines produce a force, and that is torque. But when I take that force and I add in the time or the speed at which it happens, that's where horsepower starts to come in. Horsepower technically is defined as what is it? How long it takes to lift 33,000 pounds, so many feet in a minute or some shit. I forget what the actual term is for actual horsepower. And time is involved, right? Because it takes a different amount of force to do it in a certain time. Whereas torque or force is just how hard I'm pushing on it, right? And that's it. So with horsepower and torque, you can calculate one from the other. And the reason, jerk is the rate of acceleration change, right? So acceleration is the rate of change of speed, and then jerk is the rate of change of acceleration. But that isn't come into play on this discussion because the speed is in the RPM, and we're not doing speed squared in the equation. So with horsepower, how do I calculate? You can do it two ways, right? Dynos do horsepower two ways. Some dynos know how much their rollers weigh, and they go, it takes this much power to accelerate these rollers in this amount of time. And so that's how a dyno jet typically works. They go, okay, our rollers weigh this much, it takes this much time to accelerate the roller, therefore that gives us horsepower. And then they go, okay, that's cool. So what was the engine RPM at this point in time? And they go, okay, cool. So now from that, I can divide out the RPM and I can get torque. Well, divide the RPM, multiply it. Anyways, the equation is horsepower equals torque times RPM divided by 5252. So if I have horsepower, then I multiply 5252, divide out the RPM, and I get torque. Other dynos, like the Dyno Dynamics dyno that we have, it measures force. So it has a load cell on the side of it, on an arm. Mustang dynos do the same thing, it's got an arm on it. And it loads the car, and it measures the force that's imparted on that little strain gauge. And then it says, okay, well, I know what the force was at this point in time. What was the RPM? Oh, okay, so this is the RPM times the force divided by 5252, and now I have horsepower. What's important is that When you multiply times RPM, you're putting the time into it. So I have force in, say, foot-pounds, and then I multiply times RPM. Now I'm adding in per minute. I'm adding in the time into it. And that's where power comes in, because like I described earlier, I can do work, but work times time or work per unit time is power, essentially. Physics is weird because there's like 5 different ways of describing power and energy. And in some cases, the definitions, they get a little fuzzy. They kind of crisscross a little bit. Like impulse. Impulse is another one. Impulse is power per time. So it took so much power to wreck something, and how much time it happened. So like there's a lot of weird stuff. I guess if you have power per time, that you might actually have jerk in there too. I don't know. Whatever. I have to go open the textbooks again and look that up. Let's see. Is there another chat message in there? Yo, whoever B lowercase p is. BP, hi. All right. So, BP. Yeah, stop spilling oil in the Gulf. No, I'm just kidding. What we got? Yeah, the questions about that stuff. Torque isn't too much hours, per hours per time. Electrical worker, power strictly from up pipe into the housing. Tomei equaling to, ooh. Yeah, their up pipe's way too big. I don't, the Tomei up pipe, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of a lot of their stuff, actually. They have some pretty good papers that show the research that went into some of their products, but not everything, just a couple things. And some of them I look at and I go, oh, that's a false equivalence right there. They did not do their stuff correctly. In some cases, like, oh, that's very well done. I don't like their up pipes and headers. The up pipe is just way too damn big. Too big. And then we got that volume thing again, but also with volume, we have velocity. So now I have lower exhaust gas velocity and everything. So could I make more power? Yeah, maybe. But the cost is going to be a butt whack a spool. Let's see. 96 Suburban with a 7.4 liter, 490 foot-pounds of torque, and like 279 horsepower probably. In the next few months, I'm going to switch to something else. I'm kind of leaning towards Killer Bee or maybe the map header. Yeah, you know, I have that exact same situation going on right now, and I'm choosing the map header. Take that how you want. That's what I'm choosing for my thing. And let me it's not preface anymore because I already said it, but let me add some qualifiers to this. When I first saw the map header, what they were claiming and what they were saying when they released it, I was a little pissed off, and I think I voiced it to them before. I kind of bagged them on it, saying that they were just trying to copy Killer Bee by doing this, you know, the rotating thing and doing the 4-to-1 and all that kind of stuff, and that even though it wasn't the exact same design, it was basically just a copy of what Killer Bee was trying to do. And I mean, if you know me, you know that sometimes I can be kind of a hothead, but you also probably know that I'm very faithful and loyal to a brand or company when they do good things and they, you know, when they do things that advance the industry. I'm always trying to advance the industry, and you know, I care about what happens in our worlds, and so companies that advance the industry get my support a lot. But my view has changed a bit on that, and not the industry part, but on the header itself. I don't dislike the header. I think that it has good dimensions as far as primary diameter and an up pipe collector diameter. I think it has good dimensions, and so I'm a fan of that. It's not too big, not too small. You guys may know that Killer Bee now has a higher flow version of their thing, I guess. That's in response to the fact that lots of headers make more power than theirs, strictly due to the fact that other headers had larger primaries or secondaries or that kind of stuff. Oh, max VE is that what they call it now? Right, the max VE header. And that's how it should be, right? There are very few products that you can sell and blanket and say this is the best for all situations, because it just ain't the fucking truth, right? And so I'm glad that they're coming out with the max VE header. I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm glad that they're, they have cool products, although a lot of their shit is fucking holy god expensive. And I think a lot of it's unreasonably priced, just plain unreasonably priced. Headers are all, around a good header right now is all, they're all around a grand or so, and their header is a better material than most, and so their header price is a little more palatable. But then there's other things like their aerial separator that I think is way fucking overpriced. And what was it, their turbo inlet that looks like it's gonna be really good? Looked like it was way too freaking expensive. And then much stuff. I just feel like it was just absurdly priced. And so when I see that happen, I tend to push back a little bit. No, not at all. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that most good headers are all around the same price. But some of their other stuff is way too expensive. And some of their other stuff, just don't like the company. Yeah, and that exists, right? There are people, so like, who made +2mm rods popular? Well, it was kind of me, right? I brought them to the market many fucking years ago, before most of you guys even had Subarus or even could drive. And I posted all kinds of results and papers and fucking sheets and data and everything about why these are better, and why almost every other maker of stuff, tries to fit longer rods in other engines like LSs and that kind of stuff. And I had +2 rods available for like 5 or 6 years, and I was the only guy that sold +2 rods. And I didn't sell that many. I didn't sell very many, but everyone knew I was the one to get them from. Even IAG knew I was the guy to get them from, but IAG didn't buy any from me. They didn't buy a single fucking set. And they went years, them and other people, I'm not calling IAG out on that, they're just an example, them and many other vendors contacted Manley and were like, sell us these rods. And Manley's like, well, these are Dominic's rods, right? Like, we make them for him. That's the deal we have. They have his logo on them. We make them for him. No one fucking bought them. And as soon as my contract with Manley expires, Manley fucking sells them like crazy. And it wasn't a pricing thing, because wholesale, I had great pricing rates. In fact, I probably was beating the current wholesale rates that they're getting from Manley now. I think they just didn't like the company. Me, I was the company. I think they just didn't like me. And, and that's fine. So if you don't like Killer Bee because you don't like the way Chris carries himself online, well, that's totally fine, because people don't like the way I carry myself online either. And so I get that. And I understand. I get it. And it sucks, because a lot of the people that didn't like me or like the company didn't really know me, right? Or know how much I cared about the community and the industry and that kind of stuff. They just said, oh, well, that guy was mean to somebody online once. Fuck that guy. And that's the price I paid, right? That's the price I paid for it. I could have sold thousands of sets of rods, and that would have funded these projects I'm just now getting out to people. That I could have had these done, fucking 6 years ago or more, because I had all these ideas in my head for so freaking long and everything. But, yeah, anyways. Yeah, if you don't like the company, then don't like the company. It's fine. I can't argue with that. But what I can argue with is someone who doesn't like the best stuff and then suffers because they bought less shitty stuff because they got shittier stuff because they didn't like the company. Like, I don't like injector dynamics, so I got these fucking D-Works. Well, you're a fucking idiot. Because there's a point at which, if there is something that's way fucking better, you need to use it. You need to just swallow your fucking pride and use it. So there's some stuff like that where it doesn't matter how much I don't like the company. You know, I need the best product for this thing. I'm gonna fucking buy it. So, luckily, when it comes to headers and oiling systems, you don't have to buy Killer Bee because the difference is just not there in a lot of stuff. Maybe it's a tiny gain here and a tiny gain there, but these are tiny gains. You know, you're not getting this, 50% improvement in drivability or 50% improvement in consistency and balance. Like, you're not getting these huge gains like you get with, like, say, a really good injector. You're getting just like, oh, I got like 1%-ish over here and like 500 RPM, maybe, that'd be a lot, like 5 RPM better over here. There isn't big gains to be had. So it isn't, it just isn't the same. Should I get rid of the cats by getting a header and catless up pipe? No, you should never get rid of cats. The fuck are you, stupid? The environment needs its cats. I do not condone the removal of emissions control devices on vehicles. Doing so is a federal offense. The EPA has been given blanket authority by politicians many, many years ago, like 2 or 3 decades ago, to write any fucking law that it wants pertaining to emissions, pertaining to the environment, and then give them blanket authority to also enforce those laws, which includes the often highly over-exorbitant fines for even enabling somebody or suggesting to somebody do something that defeats emissions. If I sold edge tuners, the edge tuner, long time ago, allowed people to defeat emissions control devices. It didn't do it on every person. You had to ask for it. You had to tell it, do these things for me. But it allowed people to do it. The EPA deems you are guilty for selling an edge tuner to somebody and allowing them the capability of violating emissions, even if they never did. And they held no bias or regard for any sort of personal rights or anything to any offender. You allowed somebody the possibility that they could actually, but probably didn't, violate emission standards. Therefore, we're fining you $4,987 per edge tuner sold. Now, we understand you only made $25 per sale, but you're liable for allowing this person the potential ability to maybe defeat emissions devices should that person deem that they needed to do it. And they don't call you up to ask you, hey, by the way, is it okay if I fucking turn off this emission control device? Right? No. But it's your fault for selling it. It's your fault for making it. It's your fault for recommending it. So no, I don't tell anyone to take cats off their cars. Because you getting some extra horsepower out of your vehicle by removing a cat ain't worth a fucking fine to me. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, don't ever email me about cats or anything, ever. Plain and simple. I tell people all the time. If I get an email that says, hey, my car's catless, delete. I may not even answer it. Or I tell them, can't help you. You said catless. You're out. I don't tune catless cars. Doesn't happen. I am making $100 and something on a tune is not worth the $4,987 fine associated with doing it. And people go, well, my state doesn't test emissions. Well, it doesn't fucking matter what your state does because it's a federal fine. So no, I don't reckon you pull cats out of your car. You'll never hear me say that, ever. Never. Your horsepower is not that important to me. And I don't mean to bust your balls about it. I'm just emphasizing dramatically that the EPA is a big, crooked, cock-sucking pile of shit, and I hope everyone there dies of a cancer induced by getting a vaccine. That's how I feel. Because fuck the EPA and what they do. They sit there and attack small people, they attack small businesses, they attack all kinds of little people that have no fucking way of defending themselves, impose extremely exorbitant fines,
for shit that person had nothing to fucking do with. It's exactly what they're trying to do with gun control right now. They're trying to hold Remington and Ruger and Sig Sauer and stuff accountable for people who get killed with their weapons. It is completely fucking retarded in the biggest way I can ever imagine. It pisses me off, especially as a veteran who joined the military because he was a patriot to defend the Constitution and our country and everything else, to see just getting absolutely fucking shit on by crooked politicians and shitty government agencies that'll do anything to make a fucking buck. They don't put hardly any restriction on the biggest offenders. And honestly, it really chaps my fucking ass. That's all the swear words that come out about that. Yeah, fuck the EPA. I get that the heart of the mission is important and that our planet should be protected. And I get that. I get that there is climate change going on. Some of it is man-induced. Most of it is the natural occurrence of the earth and that kind of stuff. But models do show that our rate of change has exceeded what is expected over previous histories and ice core samples and all that kind of fucking shit, right? I get it. And I want to have a clean environment. I want to not walk outside and see all this fucking smoke. I don't want to smell like a campfire when I come in from walking outside and mow my fucking lawn. I don't want my cars covered in ash. I don't want our water full of shit. I don't want any of that kind of stuff, right? I love green, beautiful trees. I love green grass. I like clean air. I like clean water. Who fucking doesn't, right? But these fucking assholes, they only go after little people who have this minute fucking effect on any of it. I mean, motorsports is just a fraction of the population. And I got jets that fly overhead of my house, dumping jet fuel and emissions at a rate that far exceeds what all the motorsports this country would do in a fucking year at just this one airport. So it really irks me that they sit there and attack our motorsports like they do. It irks me that they attack small businesses the way they do. It irks me that they attack the guys that make the Edge, the guys that distribute the Edge, the guys that sell the Edge, and then they don't get the guys that use the Edge because, well, we can't find all those fuckers. But they find everybody else along that fucking path. That same Edge tuner gets fined 3 or 4 times for the same offense that none of them committed. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's a big point of contention, definitely, to me, as you can tell. There's a lot of people in the industry. That's why the RPM Act is something that should be passed to protect motorsports. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't eliminate or rein in the EPA and their asinine fucking financial system. When people were like, oh yeah, Trump's going to defund the EPA, I was like, fuck. Because if he does that, where does the EPA get their funds from? Fining us more. They fined Rally Sport, or the company that owns Rally Sport, $3 million. It was originally $300 and something million in violations that they said, you know what, we're going to be nice and knock it down to $3 million for you. Golly gee, thank you. Thank you so much. That's why you see that catless downpipes have gotten a lot harder to get. TGV Elites for BMWs and diesels are harder to get, even for some Subarus. Some Subarus have changed the name of TGVs to something else. It's harder to get exhaust without DPFs in them anymore. It's harder to get tuners. It's hard to get a lot of stuff because the EPA has attacked all these little companies because that 1% of the population is responsible for the rising water levels in Miami Beach. It's all their fault, according to the EPA. So fuck those guys, and they don't have my support at all because the way they're doing it is crooked as shit. So, you know the EPA questions? I hate those bastards. If you go online and look at the, you can find the papers that they served, or the ones that went through the court system for like Rally Sport and Edge and that kind of stuff. And at the end of them is the guy's name who wrote that shit up and works for the EPA. I wish his house would get egged. Or all his tires slashed or something. Fuck those guys. You know, they're definitely taking payouts from bigger corporations to look the other way. They're definitely doing all that shit and then hammering us little guys, you know, for... Fuck, some cars, like, if you have a 2.5i Subaru, those things have issues with cats. They eat cats like fucking lunch.
Some of those cars will go through 2 or 3 sets of catalysts in less than 200,000 miles. Now, is that the owner's fault? Fuck no. Right? It's not their fault. But you know what? Those things like $1,600 a piece. People can't afford that shit. They can't afford to throw $600 in their car over a fucking catalyst because it was made shitty or has a shitty control scheme from Subaru. Like, some of those people cannot afford that. And so they get rid of it. They put test pipes on or whatever, right? Like, you can't bankrupt these fuckers because this product was made shitty. And they don't care. They just don't give a shit. Like, yeah, tough shit. You're gonna get fucking hammered. You're hammered because you're a goddamn criminal for polluting the earth. Meanwhile, that fucking tractor goes by, excavating the road next to you, huge fucking black plume of smoke with no cats or anything. Most of them have DPS or any of that shit, right? And you're like, well, what about that guy? Like, oh no, he only puts out 10 times what you put out in your commute. So, you know, you're the problem. It's completely imbalanced and it's all bullshit. So, yeah. Have I ever gotten angry on stream before? I think that's what the angriest I've been. Oh, other than the time my cats got in a fight. I was angry that time. I don't know if you guys saw that one, where I kicked the cat because she attacked the other cat. And I was trying to separate them and stuff. And you ain't putting your hand in between 2 cats fighting because you dumb if you do that shit. And I had to kick the cat out, kick the cats apart. I think that's probably the only time I'm really angry on stream. Anyways. Now that it's all awkward and stuff, what else you want to talk about? Do you feel pressure? Oh, I didn't even sell this stuff. Whoa, my phone was not telling me these messages were coming in. I'm sorry. Is there a way to sort through all the available oils and pick one without having a chemical engineering degree? Yes. You gotta determine what your vehicle needs and pick the oil that meets that. So, main needs. Let's start with oil. Main needs for an oil. You need an oil to be the correct viscosity, and you need to have the right lubricity. Anti-foaming agents are always handy. If you have an engine that is prone to foaming a lot, if it froths up the oil a bunch, if you have things that rotate in the oil a lot, that can cause more foaming. If you have longer paths or areas of oil splashes a lot, that can cause foaming. So an EJ has all of those things, and so you can get a lot of foaming in EJ. So the things that you need, okay, so for viscosity, what dictates your viscosity? Well, the engine build, the way it's assembled, dictates your viscosity, and the manufacturer tells you what it needs on the cap. It says 530. Now, those requirements are based on some other criteria. Those criteria are not all-inclusive by any stretch. Obviously, I don't know everything they fucking decided because I wasn't part of the engineering team. But I can tell you the obvious ones, the ones that people overlook. One of those is operating temperature. Operating temperature has a huge effect on oil viscosity. And if you look at a viscosity curve of temperature, or viscosity over temperature, you'll see that it goes up. Right? As temperature drops, it goes up. Some people say that W in 5, W stands for winter, and tell you that the oil is 5 weight when it's cold, and it somehow thickens to 40 when you start the engine. That is absolutely fucking retarded, and that's not the case whatsoever. The W is not the cold viscosity. The W is an index that tells you how much the viscosity increases with the reduction in temperature. So a 5 would increase less than a 10. So a 1040 at 0 degrees Celsius is going to be thicker than a 540 at 0 degrees Celsius because the 10 thickened more as it went up. A 2050 is quite a lot thicker than a 550 at 0 degrees Celsius because the 20 was the index and not the 0 or the 5. So don't let anyone tell you some other shit because that's not true at all. And it's easy to see. Just look at an oil viscosity test. You could look at Project Farm. The way he gets the oil really cold and how fast it pours. You can see clearly that when it's cold, it pours slowly. So don't let anyone tell you that fucking oil is 5 weight when it's cold in the winter. That's the dumbest fucking shit ever. That aside, so then what does that mean? Well, that means that the oil has to be a certain temperature in the engine for the viscosity to be correct. If your temperature exceeds the temperature at which the 30 was dictated to be the appropriate range for your engine, you need to thicken it up. If you're tracking your car and you have just the factory coolant type oil cooler that came on the Subaru, for example, or no cooler whatsoever at all, chances are you're going to need to go up at least one weight in viscosity, not the 10 or the 5, but the 30 or the 40. And that's because your oil temp is now going to operate probably 20 to 40 degrees hotter than it would be in the car when you're driving it normally. And in 20 to 40 degrees, oil viscosity will drop about in half. From operating temperature of like 180 to 220, that's 40 degree swing. Your viscosity would go from like a 30 to like a 12 or something along those lines. It drops significantly. So if you're operating those higher temperature ranges on the track or in a situation where you have a high duty cycle, you need to thicken the oil up to handle that type of use because the temperature is going to be there. So you cannot correctly choose an oil viscosity without knowing the operating temperature of the oil. You can't. You can guess all day long. And many of us have found that as a general rule, bumping our EJs up to a 40, if we're in a situation where where the cars make more power or we drive them harder, provides us more protection because we're going to have a higher temperature. But that's the reason why. The reason is the higher temperature, and that's why you go to a slightly thicker oil. Because as the oil gets hot, it loses viscosity, you lose your protection. The build dictates also oil viscosity needed because if all the bearing clearances are really, really tight, then it takes a thinner oil to get into those areas. And it takes a thinner oil to lubricate those areas quickly. Last thing you want is oil taking forever to get to a spot because it hasn't heated up enough to squeeze its way into the cracks. Not just that, but oil flow through a bearing is just as important as oil being there in the first place, if not more important. Oil flow through a bearing removes heat from the bearing. You need to cool the bearings as they spin. If you have not enough oil flow caused by too thick of an oil, then you can overheat the bearings and spin a bearing. And you're like, that's crazy. I had 50 weight in it. I don't know why my bearing spun. Well, it's because you had 50 weight in it, right? You didn't have more protection by being thicker. You actually reduced the oil flow through the bearing, reduced the cooling, overheated the bearing, and fucked up your engine. Conversely, too thin of an oil gives you lots of flow through the bearing, but now the strength of the hydrodynamic wedge that the journal and the crankshaft are right on is decreased, and you can press through it. And that would create a metal-on-metal contact, but not really metal because bearings aren't very metally. But you would get, a bearing to journal contact, which can dent or score or rub the bearing itself, cause an imperfection, which then changes the way the oil moves through the bearing, potentially resulting in higher concentrations in other areas, higher concentration of force in other areas, I should say, and further bearing wear until failure. So now we have the build. So like I said, the clearance is larger, however, than a tight one. You need a thicker oil because you don't want all the oil to go squirting out the main bearings, for example. So if I have really big main bearing clearance and I have really thin oil, well, the oil is not going to make it to the rods because it's going to squirt out the sides of the mains. You get some to the rods. And then also it's really thin, so you don't have the strength and the hydrodynamic wedge that you had otherwise. On the other side, to further expand, you also need to know what kind of components are in your engine. Is your engine an LS? If it's an LS and it has roller lifters and not flat tappet lifters, then it doesn't need the same kind of oil that a flat tappet engine would need. That being said, the rockers in an LS are not roller, and they do rub on the valve stem at a small point, and they have a lot of workload on them. So you might want to stay with one that still has some more anti-friction, anti-wear additives to help the tips of your valves and the rocker arms. But the lifters don't need it. In a Subaru, we don't have roller lifters. Is my audio fucked up? I'm holding the phone differently. I don't know if I can cover the mic up or not. In a Subaru, we don't have roller lifters or roller rockers. We have what's basically flat tappets. It's a big bucket riding on a flat, the lobe of the camera on a flat bucket. So there is a metal-to-metal interface there that we need to lubricate. And it's a sliding type of interface, right? It's a sliding, the bucket is supposed to rotate as the cam comes in contact with it. So you have this sliding motion between the two parts as they rotate, which is where a lot of cam failures happen and other stuff, different topics on the day. So if you have a flat tappet style stuff or that bucket style, you need to have oil that has more anti-wear additives or friction inhibitors to keep that stuff happy, because you don't want to get metal on metal. Things like zinc and phosphor and calcium all play a part in, and boron? I think boron, I forget. All play a part in providing that cushion, cooling, and everything between those rotating and intimate parts. Then you got to know your fuel type and your engine type, your induction type. If you have an engine that is diesel, well, diesel fuel contaminates oil pretty bad, so you got to know what oils are good for that. Diesels operate at slower speeds but higher cylinder pressure, so you got to make sure the oil is right for that. And then other things for gasoline, if you're port injected, you're usually pretty good with pretty much whatever you want as long as you take the other things into account. But if you're direct injected, you got to worry about your oil then, because now you have the concerns of LSPI, low speed pre-ignition. LSPI has been found to be greatly affected by the stuff in the oil, and I believe right now the current scapegoat is calcium. I believe they found that calcium is the biggest offender and contributing to LSPI. And so Dexos-based oils, and you see Dexos 1 and Dexos 2 approved oils, those oils are low in those additives like calcium and, I forget, it's a B. I think it's boron, I forget what it is. It's another one that is required to be at low levels for the Dexos approved oils, because Dexos is a certification for oils that is designed to combat the precursors to LSPI. So the idea is that these oils reduce the chance of LSPI, reduce the chance of engine failure, and all that. Now, LSPI, low speed pre-ignition, is not detonation. It's not knock. It's different than that. It's similar in that it is a combustion event that occurs or that is not initiated by the spark, but detonation happens after the spark event inside of a window called the knock window. It usually happens around peak cylinder pressure. So it's something that can be sensed, it's something that can be reduced and controlled. LSPI happens as the piston is on its way up, and often really early, like halfway through the stroke, long before a knock window would ever be open, long before detonation would ever thought to exist. It's believed now that the fuel and oil and friction in the cylinder, something in there causes a flame to start in the cylinder as it's still injecting and as it's compressing, and that creates just absolute fucking damage. As you can imagine how much damage would happen if you're trying to compress an expanding air fuel charge that has been expanding for a while, and you're adding energy to it during compression. You can't do anything for that. It isn't a factor of too much timing. It isn't a factor of anything other than they say load. They say that high load, low speed is what causes this problem. I suspect that it's going to be something along the lines of static. I'm going to sound silly, but I think that there's going to be something along the lines of static caused by the fuel spraying at such a high velocity through the nozzle and the movement of ions in the cylinder causing enough energy to bring fuel above this ignition point in the cylinder. We're already adding a lot of energy in there as it is, and now I have these extremely high-speed fuel molecules that are jamming along, right? When you speed up fuel, you add energy to it. You speed up anything, you're adding energy to it. So now I'm adding a lot of energy to this fuel, and I'm jamming it through there. So whether it's static or just the high speed or something, I think that when it gets more decoded, they're going to find it's something quite a bit more trying to find like extravagant or remarkable like that than just like, something's caused it to fucking blow up instantaneously. I don't know what it is. I think it's gonna be something a little more related to that. I don't know if you've seen in other videos I've shown energy state graphs for chemical reactions, where I show the reactants, the breakover, energy, and then the products, the energy state of all of those, and I provide some parallels to that with combustion and octane and all of that. I think that the speed of the fuel and the energy added to the fuel as being injected in the cylinder, combined with the other chemicals and stuff, bring that down, bring that breakover threshold down, and cause the ignition event to happen very prematurely. I think that's what these guys are probably going to find when all these scientists really get into it and figure out, oh shit, son of a bitch, that's what it was. We're just injecting way too much fuel too fast, or whatever. I'm not certain if they've done any testing on whether fuel rail pressure has an effect on LSPI or not, but I do notice that gasoline rail pressures are quite a bit lower than diesel pressures. Lots of reasons for that. One, most fuel stuff happens in the intake stroke anyways, so you're not injecting into a burning mixture. That's a clear reason on its own. But I also wonder if there's not, in fact, some other things that are associated with that. Diesel injection happens into an existing combustion cycle. Like, combustion is occurring typically from the pilot injection, if there's a pilot injection. Like on a newer diesel, you hit a pilot injection, it starts a small burn, and then near TDC, you inject more diesel fuel into this already burning mixture. And then you inject for a duration of the piston's travel, targeting a specific fuel mass, but whatever. This is in the diesel tuning class. But anyways, so the cylinder pressure is a lot higher in that environment, and the need to precisely meter the amount of fuel entering the cylinder in a diesel is elevated above that in a gasoline motor, in just the way that I can so fine-tune the diesel's reaction with pilot pulses, a main pulse, maybe a makeup pulse at the end. I can adjust when I put fuel in the cylinder to adjust my cylinder pressure as my piston travels, and that's really super cool. But you couldn't do that if your pressure wasn't high enough to allow you the freedom of going, okay, a little bit now, a little bit now, a little bit now, a little bit now, and be able to get enough fuel in the cylinder to have that reaction happen efficiently. With a gasoline engine, with port injectors especially, we often find ourselves having to inject fuel for 360 degrees or 700 degrees of the available time, and just dumping fuel in the port to get it into the engine anyways. And that's for a normal combustion event. So if we were trying to inject gasoline into an existing combustion event, we would also need to have either really high cylinder pressures or gigantic nozzles. So, I mean, that's the main reason for the rail pressures being different. But anyways, I believe that there's still probably going to be something about the amount of energy added to the fuel that causes all of that to happen. Let's see. Man, my phone, for some reason, it used to tell me everyone messaged. Now it's not. Please can the map headers. I like the map header because I like the primary size and the secondary size. I said that. And all of that. 540 mode tool for 13 X3. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big mode tool fan, but a lot of guys love it, so that's fine. Put themselves in their place. Haha. Yeah, I mean, I still run a diesel oil sometimes, because I believe that a lot of what the diesel oils offer helps the EJ out. Obviously, a lot of diesels don't have a good anti-foaming agent, which creates problems. Like the new Rotella, it foams a lot compared to the old Rotella. So that created a lot of problems. Miller's 540. I have no idea about Miller's. I've never heard of them before. Nanotechnology. Okay, so small particles. I see. For some reason, I thought the viscosity was a metric on load handling, but it seems that it's not quite correct. No, viscosity is strictly flow at temperature. That's it. Viscosity is strictly flow temperature. How much flows through an orifice this big at this temperature. That's all viscosity is. It's strictly the flow capacity, or the flow, what's the word for it? I don't know, flowability? I gotta make sense. Pourability? I don't know. and then a bigger cushion. It's fine. That makes sense. Never heard of car stuff, but I can see it. Doesn't E85 carry a charge too? I remember seeing something about E85 rating fuel lines, grounding the charge, something. I mean, everything carries a charge, right? Well, not everything. Obviously, there are some charge neutral things, but pretty much everything carries a charge. Some things just conduct a charge better than others. Like an insulator, for example, people think insulator has no charge. Well, insulators have lots of charge. Insulators hold charge and don't let it flow through them, where conductors let charge move through them. So they all hold charge. You've all done the balloon thing, right? Well, the balloon is an insulator. It's not a conductor. But you can take the balloon and rub it and it'll make your hair stand up because that insulator didn't allow the charge to distribute itself all over the balloon. It maintained the location of the charge in that one area because it's not a conductor. So it can get charged and it stays there. Now, as far as free electrons in E85, I don't believe there's a whole lot of. I had to look into that. I had to look in to see how much free electrons there are, or holes, or spaces for electrons in E85 versus gasoline. I had to look into that to answer that question better. I like. Oh, okay. From the UK. My wife's from the UK. Do you play Need for Speed Heat? I don't. But you know what I do need to play? I need to play the bathroom. So I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna leave the phone here, so you don't have to listen to any of the orchestra music going on. And I'll be quick. If you're still here when I get back, I greatly appreciate it. If you're not, I totally get it. I wouldn't want to stare at the ceiling for a long period of time either. So I'm gonna use that now. I've had to go for a while, and I will come back and answer more questions in a minute.
Oh, only 4 left. I'm surprised. Thank you. Thank you to those who stuck around. Let's see what the gifts I got. I got more stuff in here. What's this? Like so many packages today. I guess it's Monday, right? Oh, my sights. Start opening this thing. Open it up, didn't I got a red dot. I got a Vortex Venom red dot. 3 MOA dot. There's some out there that are like 6 and 12 MOA or 9 MOA. It's like ridiculously large dots. And I just, I guess in a close quarter combat situation, a big ass red dot would make sense. It'd be easier to acquire the dot. This is the mount I got. I didn't get it for this one though. I actually got this to mount, to test another one that I have that's a little low. Oh, is that it? That's it. Okay, that's cool. That's the end of those. This one, I got some Willwood brake lines for my Corvette. These say C6 on them. And C7. They don't directly fit a C5 unless you are doing what I am doing and putting Willwood 6-piston fronts on your Corvette. You need those lines to adapt them there. So, pretty excited about that. I'll show you guys the 6 spots here in a second if you want to see them. And let's open this other bag. Let's see what we got. I have no idea what it is. I don't remember. Maybe the wife ordered this. I don't know. It's got both. It's got my name on it too. Let me see. What is this one? There we go. Sorry, I need both hands. This is spark plug wires. Okay. Edelbrock spark plug wires. Now I know you Subaru guys don't even know what a spark plug wire is, but LS still has spark plug wires. So I needed some high temp boots to help put around the wires because I have headers and I wanted to protect them. Here we go. Here we go. This is it right here. This is what I was waiting for. This one spark plug. This one spark plug I purchased on Amazon. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard about the issue with a lot of fake Chinese or whoever made NGK clones, that it's dangerous now to buy spark plugs on eBay or Amazon because the chance of getting a counterfeit is actually really high. And that is a total shame because some guys will be like, oh yeah, I bought a bunch of spark plugs for my car, sweet, and then their cars run like shit and they can't figure it out. They think they got bad coils or something. So I'm gonna go into the garage, put my slip-ons on. It's easier than lacing shoes. I'm gonna grab the other spark plug and I'm gonna compare the boxes of both of these plugs. Let's go see if I got some real ones or counterfeit ones. And while I'm in here, I'll show you a 6-pot. And if you haven't seen my Corvette part to do the clutch, on top of my toolbox. Thought that was pretty funny. And I figured out what all my torque tube rattle was. I'll put this on and demo it. It's just normal gear lash. Since I had no springs on my clutch hub, it was transmitting tons of gear lash. Sorry, I had a connection issue there. The 4-auto coilovers for my Corvette kick ass. I am so impressed by them. I'm a big fan. I thought I had ruined my car when I put the coilovers on it because that's what happens when you take a street car and you put coilovers. You often ruin the car. But I didn't. They're actually quite exquisite. They ride wonderfully. Let's pull this thing out there. All right. I really wish I had 3 hands. Or maybe a bigger penis with a strap I could put my camera on. So this is a Willwood 6. Oh, I'm going to say 6-piston in case you don't know anything about brakes. Oh, that's what the bumps mean. 6-piston, I get it. Okay, sure. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously I knew that. And, I mean, yeah, they don't say Corvette on them anymore. But those red 2 pistons, they just don't have the same wow factor that these 6s do. Get rid of that. There we go. Just not the same. So sometimes I buy things for looks. Sometimes I buy them for performance. This one's mostly looks. I'm not gonna lie. Mostly looks, some performance. The factory brakes work really good on the Corvette. They're actually really impressive how well they work. Obviously, if you're on a track with our comps and ripping around a bunch, you may have some issues with brake heat. But I also got the DBA, are they 4000s to go with them, just slotted. I don't like that a lot of the American aftermarket stuff is drilled. I don't want drilled rotors. Like, just not my thing. Drilled rotors are not my thing. So these are, in theory, like my back steps. I'm building steps. That's my back steps. I mean, I could use all my money that I make on stuff that I sell to have something make me steps or something, or I can make more car parts. So I make car parts. And unfortunately, my wife fell off the stairs last week, or the ladder. Fell off the ladder last week because I haven't made steps yet. So since I'm a terrible husband and all I do is car stuff, I need to start making steps. So now I'm curious. Let's look at the authentic from the store from O'Reilly's versus the Japanese one, the Amazon one. Boy, man, what kind of racist am I? Jesus. Okay. So I'm taking it out of the box individually because this one obviously is an individual box. Individual box. What do you got? All right. Actually, that's a good idea. I'm gonna weigh these suckers. Man, I wish these things would freaking update. Ready for speed heat now. What oil do you use on a stock? Stage 1 STI. What oil I use? I would probably use what I use on all my EJs, and that's Schaefer's. I like Schaefer's. I've seen some things that Schaefer's can do that is better than a lot of other ones. I'm going to weigh these. I'm really curious if I'm going to find anything. 1.6. 1.6. Ooh, that's a good start. That's a good start. Okay. All right. Like I said, this one's off Amazon. I don't know if it's fake or not. This one is from O'Reilly's, and they're actual NGK distributors, so they should be. This should be authentic. The one I got off Amazon may or may not be authentic. I don't know. Now, immediately what I notice is, well, this box obviously beat up, but it's a little grayer. This is whiter and brighter, and this is kind of a gray background. I'll turn the light on. Get some more light on it. Now, some of this gray could be shipping. It could be the abuse that I went through to get here. It could just be the day that they printed the boxes, the ink was slightly different, right? But there is definitely a grayer look to this versus that one there. It's got the same barcode, digits appear to be the same font, but you know, the font could be just a really good copy, or it could actually be a chosen font. I don't know. The image looks the same. It's very precise, has all the little teeny dips in it. Of course, I'm getting a phone call. I'm doing a thing. I'm going to decline that. It's my friend, supposedly, but he's not watching my stream. So is he really my friend? I don't know. He must not be. He only cares what I have to say when it's on the phone, I guess. Let's see. So all the artwork looks really close. Like, so the only thing I say that's a little different is that just this box is a little grayer. But again, that could just be because it's beat up on, or it could be ink on the day the box was printed. But the format looks the same. It even has the same Russian characters on it, which are interesting. I didn't realize they had those on there.
and I'm going to hold them at angles different than what you normally read them, in addition to how you would read them, because sometimes if you look at the way you would read something, you could miss something because your brain just goes, oh, LASER. But then you turn this way, and it's not just numbers anymore, it's a shape. And sometimes you can spot differences in shapes when you take them away from the familiar. That's a little trick that I learned from CSI Miami. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even watch CSI Miami. It just sounded funny. All right. So I did that one at this side. Okay, now this one. Upside down. The colors all look the same. The laser iridium fading print is almost identical. So externally, the boxes, I would say these are probably the same. Again, the only issue I saw was the color was slightly grayed on one. But as I said, this one's beat to shit. It could be because of transportation, rubbing the inside of the bag, you know, as it moved along, transferred some color from inside the bag. Could be something like that. I'm going to look at the shape of the box now. Might seem trivial too, but the shape of these little tabs can tell you about the box's construction and if any other corners were cut in replicating. Interesting. One of them has a smaller radius than the other. This one has a slightly different cut radius. This is more vertical than this one. This one's more gradual. See the difference there? A little tab. See how this one's very vertical and this one's at an angle? This has a tight radius, this is a bigger radius. That's a difference. That shouldn't be different unless for some reason they change their freaking box cutting mold to change the radius for some reason. But they're just stamped and cut out. So why would that be different unless it was off of a different machine? It's off a different machine, then the die they cut the box with was made differently for both of these machines. So that is something that I'm actually starting to believe that it's possible that one of these is counterfeit. That's interesting. I don't know if you know anything about tooling, but there's no reason why the same tool would cut those two different shapes. That doesn't make any sense at all. So it'd have to be a different tool. And why would they make two tools quite a bit different to cut the same box of the same product? I don't see that happening. So I'm starting to wonder if this guy is counterfeit or not. All right. Counterfeits on the left. Well, suspected counterfeits on the left. Let's do that. Let's take that off. Let's compare the plastic guards. Something simple as that can show a difference. I'm sure the white background makes this really, really easy to see. I'm sure you're loving that. This one looks like it's a different diameter than this one by a little bit. Let's, I don't think I'll be able to measure that with calipers though, due to the spongy nature of it. I'm gonna slide this over, see how that feels. Okay, I'm gonna slide this one over it. See how this one feels sloppier than this one. They're both sloppy. This one feels a smidge sloppier. Potentially different protectors. Let's see. Let's turn this around. NGK. Okay, so this one, the one that's supposed to be authentic, on this plane, I have the stamping. I have these words. I have a smooth. Oops, I should show that better. There we go. And the strap is in this angle. So this plane, the strap to the print is close. It's not the same. This one is rotated to this side a little bit. But what I'm going to do is get another one out, and I'm going to look at it again and see if indeed this is even something that is standardized in the printing, or if it is just random around them. But first, I'm gonna keep looking at these guys. So this has got some stuff in here. V9 6H maybe. This has a different number, but these are usually just batch numbers. V144. It looks like they're upside down right now. This here, this is weird looking. The finish is very granulated. I can't even read it. Oh, assembled in USA from Japanese parts. And the in USA part is really fucked up on the suspected counterfeit one. Assembled in USA, not messed up. You'll see here, the assembled in USA is actually very legible from Japanese parts. That's very legible, and the finish is less granular than this. This finish is very granular. Now again, I'm gonna open up another one out of the supposed good box to see if any of the other ones are granular like this as well and have a bad stamping on them. Because the USA you can barely make out on here, and the N is, I mean, you see like an N, and that's it from Japanese parts. And the stamping is way deeper on this side and shallower on this side. And the little notch here, the little hash they put in here, is barely even legible on this one. Where on this one, the suspected correct one, the notch is very visible. The stamping is about the same depth all the way around, and like I said, the finish is less granular in appearance. Now I'm looking at the strap. Look at the weld quality on the strap here. See how that looks compared to this one. This one, you see the weld kind of comes out around the bottom a little bit. Sticks out. Let's compare that again to this side. Look for that feature. Yeah, a little bit on there. So that weld looks pretty similar. You can see actually where some of the material has wicked up the strap here. You see some of the solder or filler rod where they used, fluxed it maybe they fluxed it when they put them together, has wicked up the strap there. Same for this one. This one's very obvious though. Like, this wicked section is very obvious, and the solder is porous on there. You see how porous that is? I don't know if you can see it. I can see it though. The solder is very porous at this wicked section. Put those aside again. Check my comments really quick before I continue. Dick camera holder, legendary EPA rant. I can't agree more. Thanks, dude. Yeah, fuck the EPA. This mouse says no decorations. It's decorations or car parts. Well, luckily I have a woman, and our decorations include plants and things about love. And that's part of. Oh, and the Seahawks 12 sign in the corner. But yeah, it's all the wife. You know, like most guys, it's all the wife. She takes care of it. Although I have a lot of artwork that I have not put up. I have a lot of pictures that my grandfather took. He was a bit of a photographer and did a lot of art shows and stuff. And he has some awesome pictures. And I had them all over a house a while ago. And then the last house I didn't because I felt like I was going to move out of it pretty soon. I had a couple up and that was it. But at this one, I think I want to get them all up. The problem is wall space. There's not enough wall space here to hang them all. At least to have look tasteful. Hey, what's up, cat? This is the other cat. This is Gertrude. Say, I'm the bully, aren't you? Gertrude's the bully. Okay, you're on the way my thing now. Come on. No. Go. All right. So. I think the next step would be to take continuity measurements of the plugs.
Measure. Yes, thank you. Here, you want that? You can have that. Take continuity measures of the plug. See what the continuity is between here and here. Right? See how that is, what the resistance is, because these should be resistor plugs. And see what we get between these two plugs. But before I do that, I want to check one more plug out of this box and see if it's just as pretty as the other one. Yes, it is. Thank you. What are you doing? You're fuzzy. Yeah, you're funny. She's a funny cat. Aren't you? You're a total pain in the ass. Okay, so I'm looking at the two next to each other that should be the same manufacturing. They might even have the same lot number. I'm going to see if I can see that. Yes, they have the same lot number, which you would assume being in the same box, but you could have a mid-lot box change, you know. But yeah, it looks like V144, V144, assembled in USA, Japanese parts. It's pretty clear. It is not as granular in appearance as the other one still. The stamping, let's measure the stamping here. Stamping is not consistent. So that is not a factor. That's not something I should be basing my plug's legitimacy off of, because you can see here, the stamp is not in the same location. I actually must have been lucky on this one for it to be so close to this one right out of the box, first try, because these two are clearly not the same. It is definitely off from where the strap is and everything. So that is not an indicator. Let's bring the suspected fake plug back into it again. This one's a little bit higher by just a teeny little bit. This ceramic is yellow. I don't know if the video shows that. This ceramic is yellow, and these ceramics are more blue-white. I don't know if you can see that or not. See the bluish white and then the yellowing to the ceramic. So now I'm looking at, I have a granular stamp, I have a yellowing ceramic, I have a box that's slightly off color. I don't know. I question this enough that I'm not going to use it. Yeah. I'm not going to use it, but I am going to check resistance on that, but I'm not going to check it right now. I'm going to check the weight of the plug without the box, see if it comes in at the same weight, see what we got. Wish I had my grain scale out here. Yeah, same weight. All right. So, if it is counterfeit, it's harder to tell. It's even harder to tell than it was in some of the videos I saw. Oh, wait, what the fuck? All right, well, half my arguments now are getting tossed out the window. Oh, okay, here we go. So the bottoms have the same stamp with the NGK. No, cat, please don't. No, get. Thank you. So the bottoms here are the same stamp with the same offset tag. This one, wrong offset, wrong color. The top is an even tag. Say tag, but I guess tab, I should say, not tag, tab. Tab A and the slot B. Yeah, that's what I meant. Let's check this one. Huh, this one, the edges are round. See, they're rounded edges. And this one, the edges are cut. So this box is definitely made on a different machine. So I have a box that's definitely made on a different machine. Very well copied, if it is a copy. I have a yellowing ceramic. I have granular. I have not complete stamp. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think. You think it's fake? I'm leaning towards fake.
Oh, my arm hurts. Son of a bitch. I don't know if you guys ever seen my scar. You see that? They cut that shit open. And around the backside too. I don't know if I can get around there. I can't even see it. Oh, it's right here. It'd be nice if it was not quite so dry. Oh, nice fall, cat. Did you have a nice trip? Oh, sure. Just take my thing. I don't need that, really. You just do whatever you want with it. I mean, you're a cat. You're going to fucking do whatever you want with it anyways, right? Yeah, I did. I was arm wrestling a guy, and I freaking popped it off the bone while I was arm wrestling him. But that was like 20 years ago. And so I learned to use my arm incorrectly without it for almost 20 years, man. It's crazy. I think it's like 19 or 20 years ago. And when I got it fixed, my elbow, especially a few months after I started using my arm, my elbow hurt so much in a weird place like it had never hurt before. And I think it's because I had been, I said the cat, because I'd been using the arm in a different way. Ugh. Only men do it? Only men are dumb enough, or only men are strong enough? Which one is it? I mean, my wife has the skinniest little arms. There's no way that her muscles in her arm are strong enough to break any tendons. I mean, they can't break the seal in the pickle jar, so like she ain't breaking any tendons. Oh, fuck. Sometimes I think I'm funny. My wife has the littlest arms. They're so cute. She tries so hard, and like watching her do push-ups is just the cutest fucking thing. She worked out for like 13 weeks at the beginning of the onset of COVID. Her place closed. Her dental office closed. Everybody was off. We spent 13 weeks together every day, which was absolutely glorious. And not everyone can say that, because not everyone can handle their spouse for that long. But her and I are such a good match. But we spent 13 weeks, and she worked out 2 times a day, no, sometimes once. And she got to where she could do push-ups. I was so proud of her. But even then, it was like 5, or something. She's like, push-ups are good for your boobs. I'm like, yep, I hear they are. And so she's out there doing push-ups and stuff. It was great. Put this ice away. I cooked a chuck roast in the sous vide. I don't know if you know what a sous vide is. Sous vide is a method of cooking meats. And with the sous vide, you put the meat, well, there are several ways of doing it, but the most commonly accepted way is you take the meat, you season the hell out of it, you put it in a vacuum sealed bag, and then you fill this up with water, stick it in there, light that sucker off at the temperature. And this thing pumps water around, circulates it in the dish, and controls the temperature. I got some friends that say, it's too much work, it's dumb. But let me tell you, I put a chuck roast in there. Now, I don't know if there's any meat guys in here, but chuck roast is a pretty tough cut of meat. And a chuck roast is very commonly cooked all the way to 200 degrees, just in an effort to help break everything down in there and have the meat so that you can pull it apart. Because it's still tough to chew, even when you cook it at 200 degrees. So they get the meat to break down the muscle enough that the fibers fall apart, and if you cut it the right way, you just get short little fibers that are easier to chew on. However, if you do what I did, and you season the shit out of it, and accidentally dump in way too much turmeric, no, that actually wasn't part of the recipe. You don't need too much turmeric. That was an accident. The top came off, and I'm like, so if you do it at like 132, which is typically temperature for like something that's medium rare or rare, rare, sorry. You do it like 132 for 24 hours. See, dude, the meat gets really, really tender. Not like fillet tender or anything like that, but the how I can, the T-bone, for example, has like a really nice side, and the harder side, of the T-bone. So still a very delicious and chewable piece of meat, and it was nice. It was really good. Obviously, I would have loved a fillet that I could have cooked in 15 minutes, sear, and heat up slowly, and so it's fucking cat, so it was juicy and delicious too. But to get a chuck roast to be tender like that, you gotta give it a long time to break down in the temperature. So at 132 for about 24 hours, and it came out really good. And it was still so red and rare looking that I thought I probably could have cooked it a little bit more. It wasn't blue or anything, but it was very red and even. So the sous vide's pretty cool for that kind of stuff. And you cook anything. I did pork chops for the guys for the shop on Friday. I got 10 pork loins. God damn it, all 3 spark plug protectors now on the floor, and she's running in circles. I did 10 pork loins for the guys at the shop on Friday. I sous vide them for 4.5 hours, and then sizzled them up on the grill. I actually did one in the air fryer because I was curious how it would come out, and it came out really good. I burnt the outside with the air fryer, but that wasn't hot enough. I wanted it to be really hot to get a good sear and char on it, so I hit them with the torch and put them on the grill, and they were quite good. So it's a cool way of cooking. It's pretty simple. Just bag it, put it in the water, set it, and forget it, right? And then it cooks your shit for you. And you don't have to sear the outside. I just like to sear the outside. One, because it helps with establishing like a little bit of crust on there with your seasonings and stuff. But 2, the appearance. When the outside is still 132 degrees like the inside, the outside has a very sinewy, raw meat look to it that isn't as appealing to most people as having the outside of it have a little bit of char on it, kind of thing. So you don't have to cook it on the outside afterwards. You can eat it right out of the sous vide at 130, whatever. But some people do it for a little crust, a little texture, a little sear, and the appearance. So it's pretty cool. This thing controls, like I said, temperature. You set it and it just circulates water. It's pretty neat. All right. Well, I have had a ton of phone calls and a ton of text messages and a ton of Marco Polos that I've missed while I've been doing this stream. So in the last 2 hours and 20 minutes, I need to go and answer all those people back. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I appreciate you guys. I know that I said don't forget, those who have helped, and you guys have helped. You've purchased my products. You've been in my Discord. You've spread the word. You guys have helped me, and I'm very grateful for you all 5 of you that are still here, and the other ones that were already gone. I am grateful for you guys, and I'm appreciative, and I haven't forgotten that, and I try to show that as best I can in my product development and in my pricing as best I can. And then also in my education, I try to, spread the words and educate people and provide any data that I can or any input that I can to help you make the right decisions for your cars. So I guess that's it. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Share this with your friends, especially if you like my EPA rant. I'm sure that'll get me hate mail from the EPA or something, but whatever. Anyways, thanks again. I appreciate you guys. Have a good week. Have a Monday.